The whole reason I left law was because I'm not giving you this money back because I don't have another job. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do next. And I earn that money by dealing with y'all nonsense. So that was kind of when I realized, every time you negotiate, you have to have leverage. I find a lot of entrepreneurs go into entrepreneurship to work less or to work easier. And everyone at the top loves the work. Part of that is learning sales psychology, learning how to tap into the buyer's mindset, learning how to create $1 million offers, learning how to win the battle in your own mind. There's like two big pieces of sales. The other piece is like third piece is those are like the three corners of sales. If you can master all three, then you're in there. Because most people don't take enough sales action because their own thoughts about whether or not it will succeed. If we aren't aware of the invisible enemies that we're fighting, we can never win.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited for this episode because, as you know, I come from a corporate background. I left a 6-figure, high-paying job, but listen, this person who's about to be on the show is so phenomenal. She left a really high-paying job. We're going to talk about it. She went from being a high-powered attorney to now helping so many women and so many people learn how to speak their way to cash. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to announce Ashley Kirkwood is in the building. What's going on, fam?
Hey, how are you? Glad to be here.
Listen, I'm excited for this one because I've always been a fan of your content. I've always liked the authority in which you speak from. But a lot of people right now, they're in our show notes trying to figure out more about you. They're already clicking on the links. They're already headed towards your website. But I want to go back to like the young Ashley growing up because your background is one of those backgrounds that if you were going through a book and if you had to pick a career and you were scrolling and you knew how you could stand out, you might select this career, but not know how much work comes with it. So let's talk about the young Ashley. Where are you from and how did you get to where you are?
Definitely. So I'm from Flossmoor, Illinois, and that is a small town. It's like 30 minutes from downtown Chicago. So that's kind of where I'm from. That's where I grew up with my parents, Valerie and Keith Williams. My parents are a huge influence on me. Even to this day, we are very close as a family. And that's kind of where I grew up. I think I've always wanted to be, when I was really, really little, I wanted to be a cardiologist, but I did not like blood or science or any of that. So I quickly switched over to wanting to be a lawyer. And I definitely had one of those houses where it's like, okay, you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. And I did not want to be a doctor. So I definitely went with lawyer. And then my parents kind of just supported me through that, let me try a lot of sports and activities. I was a kid that was in everything. I've had so many jobs. I started working at 13. So
Wow.
I like went around to all the businesses in the neighborhood by foot and like handed out my resume that I had my mom help me put together and landed a job running a cleaners. That was my first job at 13. I ran the cleaners. Like I was in there alone, taking customers, and I had my friends in the back. We'd be playing in there. It was so bad. It shut down after like 3 months, but I'm not taking the credit for that. But yeah, that's kind of who I am. Like, I'm gonna go get it. I've been like that since I was a kid. And yeah, that's a little bit about like the early years.
What I like about that story, I think there's always this uniqueness that happens when you're right at that age of like 13 or 14, you start seeing these skills, these different things that you can do. I remember when I was 14, I got introduced to nightlife partying from my brother going to college, and it turned me into a party promoter. So I think what's so exciting about what you're talking about at 13, you are already playing around with entrepreneurship, right? You're playing. What's one of the biggest lessons you learned? You said it was only in shop or in business for about 3 months, but I can imagine at 13 you learned something about yourself. What's one of those things you've learned from that particular moment?
I think, I learned that I can make things happen because I didn't have a job. I'd never had a job. And I just literally went and asked every business that I could by foot until someone hired me. Would they hire me? So I think the biggest lesson there was like, you can basically take someone from, I don't know who you are, to them paying you. That was the biggest lesson that I learned. And I didn't have to wait for anyone to do it. I didn't have to use any connections with my family. I probably could have. That would have been easier, but I just wanted to do it myself. And I think that there's a lot of value in putting yourself out there early, getting rejected, because most businesses definitely told me no. I didn't learn until later that according to labor laws, you're not even supposed to work till 14, but they didn't check. That's another thing. Like, if you're confident and you go in, like, people will just be like, "Yeah, sure, you can run this cleaners, of course."
Yeah, so wow, what I like about what you said though is like it takes like a certain level of confidence. And I think
Yeah.
one of the things that I've learned, doing our research and understanding the Ashley Kirkwood brand is that confidence can get you into rooms you didn't expect you could be in. Talk a little bit about how important it is to have that confidence when you're speaking your way to anything.
Absolutely. So, one, I think for confidence is an elusive word for a lot of people. I think confidence means the ability to put yourself out there when you don't know the outcome. Like, if I had to give it a definition, it's like that is a confident person. It doesn't mean that you always know how the outcome will be. It's that you're willing to try. It almost coincides a little bit with faith. And one of the things that I'll say is that if you don't believe in yourself, you can't transfer belief to someone else. So for a lot of people, it's like, I want a promotion, I want a job, okay, well, how are you going to transfer the belief that you can do that job to your superiors who have to make the decision? Like, sales is transference of belief, but confidence really does exude. And so you want to make sure that your confidence isn't in like your money or your house or your car or how you look, but your confidence is in your innate ability to get things done and just like who you are as a person, your essence. So that kind of coincides with like your worth. You have to know what you're worth. And my confidence was really built early on before I really knew who I was or what I was going to do or any of that. I knew that my parents loved me. And that gave me confidence because they would say, "You're so smart. You're so bright. You're so pretty." And I took their words as law because they were my parents. And so I would say to anyone who's a little bit older, your parents might not be calling you like, "You are so pretty today. You look so nice today. You are so smart. You are so," but so then that means like who's going to give you that, right? And so you can get that identity, I believe, from your relationship with Christ. You can get it from like knowing what the Bible says about you and speaking that over yourself. You can get it from speaking things into yourself about yourself. And then you also can get it from your friends and your relationships, which is why it's so important to only have relationships and friendships that are going to speak life into you because what you hear when you're a little bit low on confidence really makes a difference into who you become.
Oh man, you coming through with the bars, y'all, and you almost took us to church at the same time. I even had a flashback of a scripture in Proverbs. I'm pretty sure you know it is train up a child in the way that they should go, and that so that they don't know as they get older they won't turn aside from it. And I'm listening to you, and it seems like your parents set you on the right path, right? They set you on the right path, and it got you really, really there. And this confidence takes a 13-year-old, if you're listening to this right now, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening with your headphones or driving in your car, this confidence took this 13-year-old from the Chicago area off to college. She then becomes a lawyer. You know what I like about your story before we get to speaking your way to cash and talking entrepreneurship? There are a lot of people listening to this right now and there are people who we both know who are successful entrepreneurs or who have achieved some type of success, but they left and became an entrepreneur because they left a low paying job. I mean, we know a lot of people who leave jobs even as servers or waitresses. I mean, to me personally, I feel at some point you're going to leave that job anyway. Not too many people will go off, right, and achieve a degree, make multiple six figures. When I walked away from corporate, which was 3 years ago, I was a six-figure paid person, but I wasn't a multiple six-figure paid person. That takes a unique belief in yourself. What gave you the confidence to do that? But most importantly, make you realize, you know what? I can do this and I can do this for other people.
Yeah, I think there are two things, right? Like there was a prayer that I prayed probably in like it was early 2020s around there and I was just like, "Lord, I want a life of excitement." Like I want a life that's almost like unimaginable. I want to be able to like do everything you have for me on earth and then I want you to have to go and imagine some other stuff because I'm so obedient and I'm so in flow. And I prayed that prayer after I'd left, but I think that is still the reason why I left. I did like my job, but it had gotten predictable and it had gotten to the point where I was like, if I keep on this path, I'll make partner, I'll make a lot of money, and I still won't be fulfilled. And the money that I was making was almost like being poured into a bowl with the hole at the bottom of the bowl because it was just coming in and going straight back out. And I had to ask myself, like, why am I spending all my money? Like, I was literally like living like a rock star. I mean, I would just go shopping every week. I would just eat out. I took black cards everywhere. Like, I was just like living large. And I was spending so much money because I was so unhappy at work that the only benefit that job really gave me, it gave me a lot of benefits, but in my mind, it's like, well, the thing I love most about this job is the money. And so I'm going to spend that money because I'm going to get a piece of this enjoyment. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I liked it, but I didn't love it. And it wasn't filling the desire that I had within myself. And so for me, it was like the desire. When I inevitably left though, I was making 200,000 at my first firm, which was probably my favorite job in life. And then I negotiated a six-figure raise to go to another firm. And because again, I was only there for the money, I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna take the six-figure raise. And I got 60 grand of it up front. I negotiated a signing bonus. So the day I started, without even doing no legal work, they gave me a check for $60,000. And I think had I not been offered so much more money, I would have never left that first firm because I was so comfortable. But at this next firm, and this is why I do think like God was orchestrating my life because he knows things about me. One, I hate injustice. I was going to be a public defender. Like I am the person who's like, okay, try it. Like I don't have a punk bone in my body. Like, so I agreed to be a trial lawyer. Trial lawyers fight with their words for a living and win the good ones, right? And so that was the career I chose. I go to this next firm. I started experiencing so much discrimination, so much racism. My boss, from my perspective, was just not an equitable person, very disrespectful. And the way my mouth is set up, it was not conducive for that environment, even at $300,000 in my early 20s. It just wasn't conducive. And so one day, I went to her and was like, hey, I did my research. I'm the third woman of color that would leave within a year if I quit this job. And I want to know what you all are doing about that because clearly it's a you issue. And she was like, oh, absolutely not. So then she calls me in the office with HR and is like, clearly there's a problem here. And I don't know if I quit or if I left. It was like a blur. And then after that, I remember calling, my husband was out of town on work, and I called one of my guy best friends from college, and I was like, bro, you got to help me get all messed up out this office, right? And I ended up leaving, and I didn't even have like a plan. I did talk to my husband first, and I was like, "Babe, I'm about to leave this job. Are you okay with that?" And he was like, no, but like, what? He was like, I mean, I guess, like, what are you gonna do? I was like, I can get another job because I was always networking. But the final straw for me, which happened before I had that meeting, was there was a paralegal, a white woman at the office, and she didn't want to come to my office because she had gone to law school but never passed the bar. So she went to my boss and was like, "Hey, I just feel uncomfortable. She's so young. She's making so much money. She's summoning me to her office." But it's like, I'm not summoning you. This is just how it works. Paralegals come to the lawyer's office. You know what I mean? Like that is what it is. This isn't a power dynamic. This is the order of command here. She didn't like that. And they were like, well, why don't you go to her office? Because you make so much more than her. You're younger than her, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, no, no. I am an attorney. And you would not be having this conversation if I were white. Let's be real. So I brought that up. They were just like, oh, this lady is going to be a problem. I talked to several other people who had left, and I had gotten all this like evidence gathering because I am a lawyer. And I go have this meeting, and they're just like, oh my gosh. So I end up leaving, and they're like, well, we want the $60,000 back. And this was such a pivotal moment for me because you guys, that $60,000, because you can keep it as long as you stay there 6 months. I left like a month shy of 6 months, and they wanted their money back. They were like, "Well, we want the $60,000 back," and I was like, "Surely you are in a better position to let this go than I am." And they were like, "Well, you shouldn't count anyone's money," and I was like, "Well, then how about we don't count money? Let me tell you this." You make this a big deal, and I will call every media outlet in Chicago and I will tell them about my racist experience here. I was like, or you could let this go and I'll never use your name when I talk about it.
Mm.
And he was like, you know what? It's fine. He's like, I was like, because at the time I had already been in the Chicago, I had been like in the Crane Chicago Business 20 in their 20s list. I had gotten all this other press. I was asked to be a legal correspondent on networks. And they were the company that were like, we don't want you going on TV. But I had gotten so many offers to go on television to do legal correspondence and be a legal expert. So I was like, sir, now that I don't work here, just so you know, I'm about to blow this thing up. I'm about to be a legal correspondent. I'm about to do this. I could either talk about this one way or I could talk about it another way. you know? And to this day, people can obviously go on LinkedIn and see the firm, but I don't I don't center the name of their firm.
Yeah.
But even with that, they didn't have me sign anything saying I couldn't. But I remember standing up for myself and being like, I'm not giving you this money back because I don't have another job. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do next. And I earned that money by dealing with y'all nonsense. So, and I wouldn't have left but for you breaching and having me in an unsafe work environment. So that was kind of when I realized, every time you negotiate, you have to have leverage. Even if you're the person in the negotiation that has the least amount of leverage on paper, like it's a huge firm and it's me.
Yep.
I'm not even a partner. I'm a new associate. My only leverage is my story, and they know I would talk because they already knew I talked back to them. So they knew I'd love. I was like, I just love the press. Just so y'all know, I'm not scared. I'm not camera shy. They were like, okay, well, let's let's just end this like it is. And I left and I realized in a negotiation, you have to have leverage. And so that money became my seed funding. So I always tell entrepreneurs, like, don't just jump out there on a wish. Yeah, I didn't have a
Talk to
business
them.
at the time, but I had this $60,000. I was building up my Instagram and I wrote a whole book while I was there. And that book became the first book that I went on a speaking tour with and got paid to speak with. It was called The Law School Hustle because I had almost failed out of undergrad. I graduated with a 2.1 GPA from the University of Illinois College of Business. You need a 2.0 to graduate. So I didn't have the best grades in undergrad, but I got into law school by networking, pitching, making relationships, showing up every day until they let me in. And then when I got in law school, I had to get really good grades to go to Northwestern Law School because those folks made more money. So that whole like study process I developed to go from almost failing out of undergrad to graduating cum laude from Northwestern is what my first book was about, called The Law School Hustle. But I wrote that while at that like oppressive work environment. I'm like, I gotta have something else. I still had to build my personal brand.
Oh man, this is good. There's so many things to touch on this particular conversation here, and that's the importance. What I like the most about building your own personal brand while you're still employed, not just
Yes.
jumping just to jump. Right? What is the cushion, the strategy? Like you were building assets that could serve you long after having your name attached to a job or a company. And I really like that. And I think if you're listening right now and if you're working a job that you hate, because we help so many people on this podcast choose entrepreneurship, you're resonating a lot with what Ashley's talking about, but also you're also picking up some things that you need to have in place before you make that move. So let's talk about this, right? You leave that law firm. You become an entrepreneur full time. You're out there and, you have this business. And I did a research and I found out that you were, and I'm not sure if this falls in the timeline. I'm not sure if it was 8 years ago or what may have you, but you and your husband were like literally cutting out a game plan. And on this game plan, one of the things that you guys cut out was the Inc. 5000 list. And I think right now, if you're listening, you already know what that list is about. But what I like so much about your story is how it all came to place. Like this all came to life. And you wasn't just like owning 5,000 and like 4,112. You were like 370. So talk a little bit about, what it took to get to that point in business. And I hope you guys know exactly, and you probably are, I'm pretty sure you're smiling right now, just on how proud you are to have done that after facing so much backlash, leaving that job.
Yeah, I think what it took was, me and my husband definitely had a vision for it. At the time we put that on the vision board, we had no idea how we would do that. I think Speak Your Way to Cash was either in its infancy or it hadn't even been created yet because the first company that we started and worked in together was my law firm, Mobile General Counsel. So, it took pivoting, it took listening to our customers, it took a lot of hard work. And it took doing something that I was willing to work hard in. I find a lot of entrepreneurs go into entrepreneurship to work less, or to work easier, or to get this dream life of like laptop lifestyle. But I think you should go into entrepreneurship to go into something that you want to work in. Like go into it because you love the work. The whole reason I left law, traditional law practice partner track, was because I didn't love the work like the people at the top did. But I always look to the top of any industry to see how I should operate because I want to be and I'm aiming for the top. I don't go into stuff aiming for the middle or the bottom. And everyone at the top loves the work. Tyler Perry's a billionaire and still writes stuff. Why? Because he loves the work. Beyonce is still like executive producing her own projects. Why? Because she loves the work. And people are always looking for someone to take work off their plate as younger entrepreneurs or newer entrepreneurs, and even as more senior entrepreneurs. But I think the trick is doing something where you actually love the artistry, the creativity, and all of the ups and downs that come with the work. Every great entrepreneur falls in love with the work. And so I did not be an entrepreneur to work less. I became an entrepreneur to work and love the work. Like that's what did it. And for me, I will do things creatively. I will stay up and get work done. I will have to kind of my husband has to tell me like, okay, we're not working now. Like I started taking sabbaticals. I've started playing tennis to kind of balance it out. But like I'm the type of person where it's like, oh, I'm in it because I love the work. Like let's go.
Man, that's so good. As you were talking, there's aha moments that I was having, and the loving the work side, and I look to my left, and there's like all these different photos of all these different things I've been able to either accomplish, or people I've worked with, or people I've met. There's Rich Paul, Matthew Knowles, Angela Yee, Chrisette Michelle, all these people that I either know, worked with, or admire at a very high level. And I realized as you were talking, I really do love the work. And I think if you're listening to this right now, it doesn't feel like work when you love the work. And I think that might be why you might carry your laptop with you to the pool. It just doesn't feel like it. And I think if you're listening, I think what really can change your entire life, you get anything from this podcast, is if you find what you like doing and you're really good at it and you love doing it, you can do that for the rest of your life and enjoy it. A lot of people reach certain things in their life, whether it's their jobs. I mean, you had a job that you really liked when it was at 200K, got a new boss, a new environment, and was like, nah, not for me. But then you were able to unlock and find something new. But I also think one of the biggest lessons that can be learned from you is your ability and how you study things and how you think about things. I don't think too many people would have caught on to the fact that, start from the top and then go way to the bottom. One of your quotes, and I wrote this down, is that, and I want to make sure I said this right, says, you believe that you should start at the top of the speaking market instead of working your way up from the bottom. And I think that's tough. Elaborate for me there, because I know one of the things that you help people do, and I'm excited to talk about this because people right now want to just learn from you, is that you have an event coming up and it's called Black Women Sell Live. Tell us a little bit about how can we learn from you? What are some of the things that you'll be teaching at this event so that we can take some of these strategies and really, really run with it?
Yeah, definitely. So Black Women Sell Live is an incredible event. This is our second year doing that event in particular. And it's an event where we're teaching sales. I realized that before law, I actually did inside sales. So I used to do like hundreds of sales calls a day and get rejected all the time. That was just a part of the job. And so one of the things that we'll be teaching at this event is actually sales strategy. And a part of that is learning sales psychology, learning how to tap into the buyer's mindset, learning how to create $1 million offers, learning how to win the battle in your own mind. Like there's so like sales, so much of sales is psychology. There's like two big pieces of sales. Is psychology is one big piece. The other piece is like technique. The third piece is strategy, right? And so if you can get the psychology, the techniques, and the strategy in one event, those are like the three corners of sales. If you can master all three, then you're in there. Because most people don't take enough sales action because their own thoughts about whether or not it will succeed. So we have a session called Psychological Warfare, Mastering the Mind's Battlefield. Like that is all about, there's actually like 7 types of psychological warfare that when countries are going to war with each other, they employ on one another. And when I was studying them and I was researching, I looked at like some CIA information on it, some FBI information that's publicly available on it. And I realized those are some of those battlefields, some of those strategies are being deployed on us. And when I read a little bit further, it actually said that businesses, when they go to battle and when they're competing and it gets to be a fierce competition, businesses utilize some of those same strategies like misinformation, disinformation, propaganda. And if I went through them, you'd be like, oh, dang, that's exactly what that's exactly what's happening right now. I'm looking at things on social media. Like if we aren't aware of the invisible enemies that we're fighting, we can never win. So this event covers sales from those 3 elements: psychological, tactical, and strategic. And that's what we're going to go deep into Black Women at Black Women Sell Live. And that's a lot of what I love to teach. And we teach it live, so it's going to be amazing. But yeah, like it's going to be so fire.
Man, I like this. If you're listening right now, guys, this is an event you want to be at. You already are seeing how Ashley's thinking about this. You already know that if you want to succeed, you're going to have to learn how to sell it, and what better environment that you can have with having so many people there to learn. And so I really like that. What's the dates on that? I think it's in October, right?
Yeah, October 3rd to the 5th, 2024 in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, that's fire. That's fire. I want to ask you a question. We asked this question to everybody who has ever been on a podcast. This is like the question of all questions. If you were that person who is getting ready to walk across that stage, or perhaps you don't even have a college degree at all, but you're asking yourself the question of the podcast, school's over, now what? What advice would Ashley Kirkwood give?
I would say do market research, like talk to people in different career fields, ask them if they could do something different. What would they do? The whole thing about starting from the top of the market instead of working your way up from the bottom is you can stand on top of the experiences of others. You can stand on top of the experiences of coaches, family members, alumni of your school. There's no reason in 2024 to start from scratch with anything. Like you should always be standing on top of someone else's expertise, if not your own yet. So if you're just starting out, you may not have a lot of expertise to stand on, but you definitely can research through talking to alumni, doing some market research, having a list of targeted questions that you ask, and then take all that data and do something that is missing a lot in today's society. Think. Literally, just think about it. What do you feel about it? What do you think you should do? Like synthesize all the data points you get and then make a decision for yourself, and know whether you make the right decision or the quote unquote wrong decision, you're powerful enough to recover. So don't get caught up in decision fatigue.
Oh man, that's phenomenal. Market research, the expert is already there. Study it. Don't get caught up in decision fatigue. I mean, this is like a masterclass in itself in a podcast. Right now, audience want to know more about you. They want to know about where to go. How can they follow you? They obviously want to go to Black Women Sell Live. Tell us exactly all the information we need to have to stay in touch with all you have to offer.
Yeah, if you want to join me live and get some coaching for 3 days, go to blackwomensellavent.com. If you're just listening to this and you're like, man, I want to learn more about Speak Your Way to Cash, landing paid speaking contracts, growing my business, head over to the free Speak Your Way to Cash Facebook group. All of our information is in there, and we got some free trainings for you.
Phenomenal episode, Ashley. I appreciate you. And for those that have been listening, I want you to always remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it. We'll see you next week. Yo, what you think? I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I want to know what you learned. So if you wouldn't mind, would you take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast on your phone right now? Upload to your Instagram stories, tag me at SeanRAnthony_, and then let me know in that Instagram story what is one thing that you learned. I love hearing from you, my listeners, thought leaders, former or current students all around the world. Let me know, and while you're doing this, go inside the podcast app, subscribe, leave a 5-star review and a 5-star rating. Again, this helps us reach more people. And if you want to be a part of this mission, helping us change the world one person at a time, it makes a massive difference by you leaving a review. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week. And remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it.